come around the garage with my beautiful girlfriend Kat. It doesn't look quite as good in its raised position. Lenny's 3-cylinder turbo engine is pretty ugly. They slightly stick out of the side. So yeah, it is looking really weird now because my girlfriend's getting fed up of being stuck around the garage. Kat made sure that it didn't get tangled up. To my platers with a huge batch of bits. Steering rack cable tied to the cross member. Electric fan, I assume. There's a couple of marks. I've got a mark. This one doesn't line up properly. My broken one. At this point, I was running out of daylight. Hello and welcome to this video. I'm aaaages and today I've come around the garage with my beautiful girlfriend Kat. Kat is going to be helping me fit and remove some parts from Heidi, my hearing aid beige model Mk2 Escort. I think you can see part of what's going to be going on today. Oh, in other news, my good friend John has got his Citroen running today, although I think we can all agree it doesn't look quite as good with the suspension in its raised position. Anyway, one thing I definitely want to do while I'm around here with Kat today is get this garage looking a little bit more tidy and also compile my next batch of parts that are going to be sent to the zinc platers. But before all of that, I want to continue with this that I started in the last video. This bonnet is looking a million times better than it did now that I've painstakingly ground away all the scabs of rust and coated it in epoxy primer. And I think while I'm around here today, I want to give this bonnet a couple of coats of the Kent Europe high build primer. So I think I'm going to get a coat of the high build on this now, and while that's drying, we'll crack on with fitting Heidi's doors. Lenny's 3-cylinder turbo engine is pretty ugly, but it did warm up the primer pretty well. This bonnet will be getting plenty of coats of this high build primer so that I can then bury any imperfections that I found when I stripped it. I think it's about time we chuck these 3 doors onto Heidi. My beautiful girlfriend is currently fitting the gaskets that I made in the last video, which I actually made too long. So when you put them onto the hinge, they slightly stick out of the side. So we don't want that. We don't want them to be too obvious. So my beautiful assistant is trimming them down for me. Once Kat had finished getting the gaskets ready, I offered the passenger side rear door up, and whilst Kat held it in place, I slid on the spreader plates and tightened up one nut on each hinge. The alignment wasn't bad, so I then added the other 2 nuts to the hinges and then repeated the process for the driver's side doors. I have given the bonnet another coat of the high build primer, but I ran out of the grey, but I had a can of black. So yeah, it is looking really weird now, and you know, the beige paint is obviously going to be quite difficult to cover this black primer, so maybe I might have to dust over some grey primer and then we can put the beige on top of that. I don't know. I still need to prep the bonnet hinges, and I still need to remove the boot lid and the boot hinges from Heidi so that I can start prepping those bits. But you know, we've been around here way longer than I was planning for us to be around here, but there is one thing I want to do before we leave, and that is to throw this wiring loom back into the car. Because we removed the screens and stuff to help us fit the doors, you know, and the loom sort of has to pass underneath the seat, it makes sense to quickly throw this in the car whilst all this is out of the way. Now, I'm not going to fully fit the loom, I just want to place it into the car roughly for now, and then yeah, I can worry about fitting it properly next time I come around here, because my girlfriend's getting fed up of being stuck around the garage with me. Hopefully this won't take too long. Once I'd figured out which end of the loom was which, I lifted the whole loom into Heidi's cockpit and then started feeding the engine bay part of the loom through the bulkhead. Kat made sure that it didn't get tangled up and made sure that it didn't scratch the paint, and then we bundled it up and left it on the battery tray. I poked the rear part of the wiring loom down the side of the rear seat, then Kat fed it down the passenger side inner seal, and I just wrapped the rear end of the loom in bubble wrap. We removed Heidi's boot lid, the inside of which will be getting prepped and painted soon, and then I removed the boot hinges, which will be getting done at the same time. Hello, so into a new day, and since the last clip I have been doing a little bit of running around behind the scenes. I've been to see my friend INKY at INKY's Autos in West Drayton with the 2 passenger side front doors that I've got for Heidi, one of which has a rotten frame and the other has a really dented skin, and INKY's going to do his best to try and make one good door out of the 2, and I'm confident that he'll be able to make it work, because not only is he a very talented mechanic, but he's also a bit of a wizard with the welder. Now, I will leave links in the description to INKY's Autos for any of you guys that are in or around West Drayton area and you need a proper mechanic or fabricator to work on your car. Another little trip I made recently was to my platers with a huge batch of bits that he's going to be zinc plating silver. I can't wait to get those bits back in hopefully a week's time, and then we can start adding some more bling to Heidi. In other news, I've had another delivery from my friends at Kent Europe, including the grey 1K high build primer. And yesterday when I was at the garage, I gave the inside of Heidi's bonnet another coat of the grey primer. Alright, so I've been round here messing about with some bits off camera and time has absolutely flown. What I've mainly been cracking on with is routing her wiring loom. As you can see, you know, it comes through the bulkhead here, and the other day me and Kat just left it bundled up in the engine bay and I've fed it round. I'm not sure if it's supposed to go behind the battery tray supports there, but that's how I've done it. And then, yeah, it sort of goes along the bottom there. That'll sit under the radiator. You've got like little clips there, and then the loom goes into the other side of the inner wing, the like headlight wiring and stuff. It's actually the same story under there. Got loads of stuff hanging down. I've pretty much identified what everything is. This is for the windscreen washer bottle, and then we've got things down here for the alternator, starter motor, that sort of thing. Got an earth wire here, and I'm not sure. I think that goes either there, or yeah, I think that goes there. But yeah, it's all pretty much self-explanatory. I'm now able to plug in my brake fluid cap. Here we've got like the horn wire. I'm not going to bother mounting the horn yet because inside here is going to get repainted, but yeah, I think that's the horn wire. And then yeah, there's things like the oil pressure switch, this wire here, which I'm not actually sure, and then these wires here and the same the other side are for the indicators. So yeah, that's basically how the wiring loom routes. I will be covering this with the sort of conduit stuff just to neaten it up, but yeah, just wanted to get it routed in the engine bay. Another thing that's happened since the other day is I removed this steering knuckle and just gave it a really quick prep and paint. So it's black now rather than it being orange. I've actually got the steering rack cable tied to the cross member because one of the many things that have gone to be zinc plated are the clamps, which were very orange as well. Messing around with things like wiring looms, you know, it's just time consuming. Like, you don't want to scratch any paint whilst you're feeding wires through and stuff. Got the fuse box mounted here. I gave that a clean up with wire brushes and stuff. I actually robbed these screws and spacers off of Maud's fuse box, and she's just got a normal couple of screws fitted, so that's mounted. I haven't wired it up yet. And then yeah, just been feeding the wiring loom in here where it goes. I still need to fit the heater box and stuff, so this will basically get tucked up here, and then I've worked out what wires go where over there, clocks, stalks and that sort of thing. I've fed the wire up the A pillar for the interior light, and yeah, we've got the rear loom section that runs under here and through the seat, as you would have seen in the clips earlier in the video. that just plugs into there. I haven't been plugging in much on this loom because I want to get some of those wire brushes that look like toothbrushes, because they're really good for cleaning contacts and stuff. Things like the fuse box I was able to do with like a bigger wire brush that I've got. Also, I want to give every like connector a clean with the Kent Europe electrical cleaner, and one of the greases that Kent Europe have sent me is suitable for electrical connectors. I'm just waiting for my friend Colin, who works for him, to get back to me to confirm which one of those greases it is. I don't want to use the wrong one. So yeah, before I plug anything in for the final time, you know, things like this, they'll all get nicely scratched up with a wire brush, then cleaned with the electrical cleaner, and then greased up and before plugging it in. And you know, there's loads of earth wires and whatnot like this that'll have to be screwed to the body, and you have to clean the paint off and make it nice and shiny bare metal before you do that. There's actually some wiring that I've taken out of the loom but wasn't original. A load of this was for a electric fan, I assume. Yeah, there was this relay wired up to all that lot, so I took that out. Looks like they had a sort of override switch here, or maybe it was just wired up to a switch, probably didn't have a fan switch. And then this lot I pulled out of the rear of the loom, so I'm guessing this car must have had like a tow hook fitted at some point. But yeah, took all that off. I can wire up the fan myself, won't be having a tow hook. And yeah, feeding the rear of the loom actually took the longest, and I haven't actually finished. This needs to go in here and along here, and then, you know, some of the wires will go to that light. The one wire goes round to the fuel level sender, but I'm not worried about doing that yet, because when the outside of the car gets painted, obviously in here is going to get painted, and that's where the wiring would be. So that's why I haven't fed it through yet. But figuring out how it's supposed to route through this way took ages. At first, I sort of had it just coming down here, and I thought, no, that's not right. And then I had it like coming through here, and then realised that that's not right, because the whole loom has to go through this hole, and then, you know, it's clipped up here. I think that's how it's supposed to go, but yeah, it was a nightmare sort of changing my mind and then having to sort of feed the whole loom back through, you know, twice before I sort of decided this was how I was going to have it. So yeah, such a simple job really of routing the loom. Just took ages. On a Mk2, the interior boot light is here, so I've got the wire running along there to that, and I've fed this wire, which I assume is for the rear heated screen, and I assume comes out of there. So yeah, I fed that up to there, and the reason I assume it comes out of there is because the earth wire for the rear heated screen does come out of that same hole. So there you go, bit of a mission with the wiring loom, and you know, still so much work left to do. Every time I'm going to plug something in, I'm going to have to spend time cleaning the connectors and, you know, greasing the connectors, as I mentioned. But, you know, it is what it is. What we want is, you know, when you go to try and use the electrics, you want everything to work. You don't want any loose connections and whatnot. So, yeah, I'm sure it'll be worth it. But another thing that has been really time consuming is I've been cleaning up some of the bits for the dash, because I thought, you know, at least let's see if I can get the dash looking a bit more complete before I leave here today, because yeah, I'm not going to have much more daylight. So yeah, I've been digging out some dash parts and cleaning them up. This dash top is actually not in great shape. I've given it a clean and it looks a million times better than it did, but there's a couple of marks up here. I mean, it's not terrible, so I'll definitely be throwing it in for now, because I think I need to be, you know, directing my money towards parts I don't have, rather than trying to replace cosmetic bits. So yeah, it'll do for now. And then this bit as well, you know, I've cleaned it up, but it has got a mark there. Maybe I could put a sticker over it or whatever. I actually need to take a template from this so that I can do something similar for Maud. But yeah, got the vents for the dash, got the steering cowling, got the dash clocks, you know. So yeah, I think before I leave here today, I at least want to get these bits fitted. To make life easier, I removed Heidi's steering wheel, and then I thought I'd start with the central dash vents, which are sided. You can see that this one doesn't line up properly. That's more like it. The driver's side one is even easier to fit because of the hole in the dash where the clocks go. Next to go in were the side vents, which are held into the dash by the outer ring that just screws onto the front by hand. And then I installed the dash top, which has threaded studs on the back of it. You just poke them through the holes in the dash and then tighten up the nuts. This piece of trim here is held on with 6 clips, well 5 on my broken one. If I was going to fit the cowling, I'd need to fit the stalks, and the contacts on these were in really good shape, but I gave them a spray with the Kent electric cleaner, and then Colin got back in touch with me to tell me that the grease I needed to use was this K44. I removed the stalks from this central clamp piece and made sure that this little tab was located with this little hole on the column before adding this little bracket with its 2 screws. I then reattached the stalks to that centrepiece with the 2 little bolts each side. But then I realised I'd made a mistake. I was going to need to remove one of the stalks to get the cowling on, and also needed to add 2 of these little clips so that the cowling could be screwed to the dash. With both stalks fitted and plugged in, it was time to add the top half of the steering cowling, and then with 2 more clips pressed into the dash, I could plug in and slide in the clocks. At this point I was running out of daylight, so I decided to refit Heidi's steering wheel and take a look at what I'd achieved. There's clearly still a lot of work to do, but Heidi's cockpit is definitely starting to come together. Alright, so those last couple of clips you just saw were on my phone because the GoPro is just so useless in low light. But yeah, made some progress on the dash. There's loads of screws missing and stuff. It's not all in there properly, but yeah, it's starting to look like an Escort cockpit again. Jobs like this where you're, trying to not break plastic bits and, you're looking for the clips and whatnot. Yeah, it's just time consuming. It just feels like you're not doing anything, even though it's taken a long time, but it is what it is. I'm glad I've made some progress. What I need to do now is start packing up and start figuring out what tools I'm going to take with me, along with Heidi's boot lid and my trestle, just so that I can make progress on that in my garden without coming back round here again. Hello, into a new day, and I realise that the gap between the last video and this video has been a whole week, so apologies for that. I know a lot of you guys enjoy the more regular updates. I was actually hoping to get back around to Heidi's garage and continue putting her cockpit back together a bit more before I released this video, but yeah, that's not the case. Now, when I dug out the huge amount of parts recently to send to the zinc platers, there were a couple of bits that I couldn't find for Heidi. She doesn't seem to have a boot latch in amongst her parts, and it seems like there weren't any door striker plates with the car when I bought it. Now, luckily, the striker plates are actually available new. This is actually an aftermarket reproduction part, although it does have a Ford badge on the rubber bit. They've obviously moulded this from a genuine Ford one. And yeah, I had to purchase 4 of these. Now, when you've got to buy 4 of them, the price does, of course, add up. But it's awesome that you can get these things brand new. And my friend Timu chucked a load more money in my PayPal account the other day. Massive, massive thanks to you. I really, really appreciate it. Timu's also a patron, so he supports me every month. And yeah, I was able to use Timu's money to purchase these striker plates. Now, unfortunately, these have been zinc plated in the yellow zinc or the gold zinc. The plating doesn't look that great either, to be honest. So I will be sending these 4 striker plates to my zinc platers. Obviously need to remove the rubbers first, but they just slide on and off with the Mk2 ones, so that's nice and easy. And I'm hoping to drop those off to the zinc platers today so that he can do those with my other bits, to save me having to wait any extra time for those to get done. I still do need to get hold of a decent looking boot latch, and then yeah, I can send that to be zinc plated silver as well. But yeah, the batch that I sent to the zinc platers the other day was huge, so when I do get all those bits back, we'll be able to add loads of bling to Heidi, which I can't wait for. thought I'd quickly show you the progress on Heidi's boot and bonnet hinges. These have been bare metalled and then sprayed with the Kent epoxy primer, and then I've given them a couple of coats of the Kent 1K high build primer, and yeah, they literally just need smoothing off and they'll be ready to paint beige when I do the inside of the boot and bonnet. I've got the boot here. I haven't started prepping the inside of that yet, but when I do start cracking on with it, I will show you guys what I find. All right, so that's all I've got for this video. Definitely feels like another one where I haven't got as much done as I would have liked, and this video has taken longer to release than I would have liked. But that's the way it goes sometimes, and with so much going on behind the scenes with Heidi, yeah, it's going to get really busy, so there's going to be plenty more content on Heidi coming up on the channel very soon. I'm actually going to pick up her engine in less than a week, and hopefully within the next week I'll get all those zinc plated bits back and her fourth door, which is currently with the very talented Mr. INKY at INKY's Autos. Before I go, I want to send a massive thanks out to everyone who's been grabbing some of the new clothing that I recently re-released on my website. I actually managed to grab myself one of each of the new hoodies this time. But yeah, there's very low stock. It's only in the very popular sizes. So head over to my website at marcushaysuk.com and grab some bits whilst you still can. The sale is still running. Still got a few of the sale bits left. But yeah, again, very small numbers. So that's it for this video. If you did think it was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe if you're new. Feel free to follow me on Facebook, TikTok and Instagram. Check out my website for merchandise and car parts. Massive thanks as always to my patrons for your ongoing support. I'll leave all the links to everything in the description as usual, along with my email address for anyone who wants to contact me. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.